I want to talk to you about something that bothers me deeply as a physicist. Not in an emotional way, in a precise, mathematical, physical way. Because I have spent a long time watching people argue about whether alien civilizations exist out there in the cosmos, and almost nobody ever stops to ask the most important practical question of all. Not whether they exist, not whether they are smart, not whether they want to visit. The question that actually matters is this: can the physical universe even permit it? And when you sit down and do the numbers, when you really drag the mathematics out into the open and look at it honestly, the answer is so brutal and so complete that it stops the whole conversation cold. Let me start the way I always like to start, with something you already understand from your own body. You eat food. Your body burns that food as fuel. That fuel moves your muscles, and your muscles move your legs, and your legs carry you forward across the ground. Simple, clean, elegant. Now imagine someone gives you a task. Walk across the entire surface of planet Earth. Not fly, not drive. Walk. Step by step, the whole circumference, roughly 40,000 kilometers of road under your feet. And the rule is this: you are only allowed to carry one single sandwich for the entire journey. One sandwich. The energy stored in that sandwich, let us say it is a generous sandwich, maybe 2,000 calories, is a fixed number. It does not grow. It does not magically multiply. It is what it is. You can calculate precisely how far those 2,000 calories will carry a human body walking at a normal pace. It is somewhere around 40 kilometers, one day of walking, and then you are done. Your fuel is gone, you stop. The physics of the situation does not care about your ambition or your destination. The energy mathematics closed the door on you before you even started. Now you say, well, that is obvious, just carry more sandwiches. And here is where the universe starts to become very interesting and very cruel at the same time. Because if you carry more sandwiches, you are heavier. And if you are heavier, your muscles have to do more work per step, which means you burn through your food faster per kilometer. So you need even more sandwiches to compensate for the extra weight of the sandwiches you are already carrying. And then those additional sandwiches make you heavier still. And so you need even more on top of that. You can see where this is going. There is a point, a very real and very physical point, where the weight of all those sandwiches physically crushes you into the ground before you take a single step. The solution collapses under its own weight. This is not a metaphor. This is the actual fundamental mathematics of propulsion. And it does not care whether you are a human being with a backpack or a civilization a billion years old with a shiny metal spaceship. Now let us move this picture into space, because this is where the numbers become genuinely terrifying. The nearest star to our sun is a small red dwarf called Proxima Centauri. It sits roughly 4.2 light years away. Now, a light year is the distance light travels in one full year, moving at about 300 million meters per second. 4.2 light years means that even light itself, the fastest thing the physical universe permits, takes 4 years and 2 months to make that crossing. If you want to send a biological organism, a living creature with a body made of proteins and water and cells that age and decay, across that distance in any reasonable biological time frame, meaning a few decades rather than 100,000 years, you need to travel at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Let us say you want to get there in 40 years at a comfortable pace. You need to be moving at roughly 10% of the speed of light. That is about 30 million meters per second. 30 million meters every single second. Now ask yourself a very simple question. How much energy does it take to push a spaceship to that speed? And here is where the mathematics becomes what I like to call a catastrophe. The kinetic energy of a moving object scales with the square of its velocity. That means if you double the speed, you need 4 times the energy. If you triple the speed, you need 9 times the energy. At 10% of the speed of light, a single kilogram of mass carries the kinetic energy equivalent of roughly 45 million megajoules. For reference, the atomic bomb dropped over Hiroshima released about 63,000 megajoules of energy. So a single kilogram of matter moving at 10% of light speed carries the kinetic energy of hundreds of Hiroshima bombs. Now imagine a spaceship, not a tiny probe, a real ship. Something big enough to carry biological life, food, water, air, radiation shielding, machinery, repair equipment. you are talking about a mass of at least a few thousand tons, maybe tens of thousands of tons. The energy required to push that mass to even 10% of light speed is so large that no chemical fuel, no nuclear fission reactor, no nuclear fusion design we can currently conceive of comes anywhere near producing it within a reasonable physical mass budget. And remember the sandwich problem. The fuel you carry to accelerate the ship also has mass, and that mass requires more fuel to accelerate it, and that additional fuel has mass. The equation describing this reality is called the Tsiolkovsky rocket equation, and it was written down in the late 1800s by a Russian schoolteacher, and it is one of the most merciless equations in all of applied physics. The equation tells you precisely, given your exhaust velocity and your desired final speed, what ratio of fuel mass to dry ship mass you need. At 10% of light speed, even with a perfectly efficient nuclear fusion drive, the fuel mass you need is many hundreds of times the mass of the ship itself. You would need a structure the size of a small moon just to carry enough fuel to push a ship the size of a house to 10% of light speed. And that structure itself needs to be accelerated, which requires even more fuel, and the whole thing spirals into a mathematical impossibility before you even leave the starting line. But let us say, just for the sake of argument, that some civilization manages to solve this energy problem. Let us say they have a physics we do not know about yet. Some perfect engine that produces energy with an efficiency we cannot currently imagine. They solve the fuel equation. They build the ship. They accelerate it to 30, 40, maybe 50% of the speed of light. They are out in the open interstellar void, crossing the dark space between stars. Now I want to introduce you to something that almost nobody in the popular science fiction conversation ever mentions, and it is the thing that I find most fascinating and most physically decisive of all. Space is not empty. I know. You look at pictures of space and it looks like nothing. Vast, dark, completely bare. But that is an illusion created by scale. The interstellar medium, the space between stars, is filled with stuff. Very thin stuff. Incredibly spread out stuff, but stuff nonetheless. There are hydrogen atoms drifting at roughly 1 atom per cubic centimeter on average. There are microscopic grains of dust, tiny particles of silicate and carbon and ice scattered throughout the interstellar space. The density is absurdly low by any standard you might use on the surface of Earth. In a laboratory vacuum on Earth, we would consider the interstellar medium to be a fairly decent vacuum, perfectly acceptable for most purposes. But at 50% of the speed of light, the word empty changes its meaning completely. When your ship is moving at 150 million meters per second, every particle it encounters hits the front surface of that ship with an energy determined by the relative velocity between the ship and the particle. And that relative velocity is 150 million meters per second. A single hydrogen atom, which is almost nothing, which has a mass of roughly 1.6 times 10 to the negative 27 kilograms, hits the front of your ship at that speed, carrying the kinetic energy of a small explosive bullet. That is 1 atom. Now consider that in every cubic centimeter of space you are sweeping through, there is roughly 1 hydrogen atom, and your ship has a cross-sectional area of maybe 1,000 square meters of frontal surface. At 50% of light speed, your ship sweeps through a column of space 150 million meters long every second. That column has a volume of 15 times 10 to the 15th cubic centimeters. At 1 atom per cubic centimeter, you are hitting 15 quadrillion hydrogen atoms every single second. Each one hits like a particle in a particle accelerator beam. The cumulative radiation and heating effect on the front of your ship is not trivial. It is not a small engineering problem to be patched with better materials. It is a physical assault, continuous, relentless, and energetically enormous. The front of your ship is being bombarded by what amounts to a particle beam every second for years. But the hydrogen atoms, as bad as they are not the worst part. The worst part is the dust. Interstellar dust grains are typically somewhere between 1/100th of a micron and 1 full micron in diameter. They are very small. You cannot see them individually. But at 50% of light speed, the kinetic energy of a single interstellar dust grain hitting your ship is staggering. A dust grain with a mass of about 10 to the negative 14 kilograms, moving at 150 million meters per second relative to your ship, carries a kinetic energy of roughly 180 million joules. That is about 43 tons of TNT equivalent, from one microscopic speck of dust, one grain. The kind of particle that floats invisibly in a beam of sunlight in your living room. At the velocities needed for practical interstellar travel, that particle hits your ship with the energy of a small nuclear device. The ship is not damaged. The ship is not punctured. The ship is vaporized, locally, completely, in a microsecond. Now, you might say, put a shield on the front. And yes, people have thought about this. A shield of dense material, a magnetic deflector, some kind of plasma barrier. And these ideas have been studied, and they run into their own brutal physical walls. A physical shield adds mass, which feeds back into the rocket equation catastrophe. A magnetic deflector works for charged particles but does nothing for neutral dust grains, which make up a significant fraction of the interstellar medium. A plasma shield requires enormous continuous power to maintain across a frontal area large enough to be meaningful, and none of these approaches have been shown to solve the problem completely at the velocities in question. Each solution introduces new physical costs that compound on top of the old ones. So let us now stand back and look at what the physics is actually telling us. Not what science fiction tells us, not what we wish were true, what the physical universe, in its completely neutral and indifferent mathematical structure, is saying. To cross interstellar distances in any biologically meaningful time frame, you need velocities that are a substantial fraction of the speed of light. Those velocities require energy quantities so large that no known or theoretically conceivable fuel storage system can provide them without the fuel mass crushing the Enterprise into absurdity. And even if you somehow solved the energy problem, the interstellar medium at those velocities becomes a lethal particle radiation environment and a kinetic impact zone where microscopic dust grains carry the energy of nuclear weapons and strike your ship at a rate that no shielding system, currently conceivable, can survive. These are not engineering challenges the way building a better battery is an engineering challenge. These are deep, fundamental constraints arising from the basic physical constants of the universe. The speed of light is what it is. The density of the interstellar medium is what it is. The kinetic energy formula is not negotiable. Mass and energy obey fixed rules that do not bend for ambition or intelligence or technological sophistication. This is the piece that people miss entirely when they ask why aliens have not shown up. They imagine aliens sitting in some distant solar system, looking at Earth with curiosity, and simply choosing not to come. As though it were a matter of politeness or scheduling or disinterest. As though the only thing standing between them and a visit here is motivation. What is actually standing between them and a visit here is the physical structure of the universe itself. The interstellar void is not a road with a long commute. It is an energetic nightmare, a radiation environment, a kinetic kill zone, and a mathematical dead end, all at the same time. The universe did not build a highway between the stars. It built a wall. A wall made of distance and physics and the cold arithmetic of energy. And this is what I find deeply important about thinking through the actual physics rather than the fantasy. Because when you understand that the universe genuinely, structurally, mathematically prevents biological life from crossing interstellar distances easily, you stop being puzzled by the silence of the cosmos. The silence is not a mystery. The silence is the answer. The physical laws are the answer. Every civilization that has ever existed or will ever exist is almost certainly trapped, in the kindest physical sense of that word, inside its own small corner of the galaxy. Not because they are primitive, not because they do not care, but because the universe aggressively and completely prevents them from doing anything else. That is the real Feynman reality check. Not whether the aliens are smart, not whether they want to come, but whether the physics of this universe would ever allow it in the first place. And the mathematics, clean and honest and completely indifferent to what we want the answer to be, says no.